Hi, this is Raine Vance of rainevance.com, where we share love and wisdom that liberates your soul. Today, live from the nation's capital, we are very blessed to have Dr. Brandy Engler, the best-selling author of The Men on My Couch, True Stories of Sex, Love, and Psychotherapy. Dr. Brandy Engler is a clinical psychologist specializing in sex and relationships who lives in Los Angeles, where she runs a private practice and is happily married. Hello, Dr. Engler, and welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Honored to have you. I'll say the title of your book alone, in my opinion, is enough to have women running to the store to buy your book to find out what men really think and feel behind closed doors when they confess their personal life in private. Because many women love to hear what others are thinking, and some of us also love discussing about sex and relationships over coffee with the girls. So I'm going to jump right into an issue that I know seems to plague so many of us women and the feelings we have around our body image. And with regards to some of the information you reveal in your book about men who literally have issues with their partner gaining even as little as 20 pounds and go as far as to justify that as a reason to cheat or to threaten to cheat, or maybe even go as far as hold their partner hostage to losing the weight before they will consider reconciling or moving back in. So what's your advice to men with regards to their attitude toward their partner's body image when it's like this? And what would be your advice to the women who might be dealing with men who have expressed these kinds of thoughts in their present relationship?
Okay. Well, I want to say that I see that occasionally in my practice. I'd say I'd seen it maybe 3 or 4 times over the past year. And when I encounter this, I typically try and explore the deeper meaning of it. Like, what is the symbolic meaning to him of her, gaining, a little bit of weight? And so often when I explore that, it means something. It's different for each guy. The character in the book, it meant that she didn't care about him anymore if she wasn't sort of taking care of herself in a way that he imagined that she should. It meant that she was losing interest in him, and so he felt sort of actually hurt by or rejected by it in some way. And men are very sensitive to cues, particularly from their wives, that she's no longer interested or she's losing her desire for him. Men are very sensitive that the woman is going to lose her libido, and for good reason, because a lot of women do lose their libido in marriages. And so men come in already kind of sensitive to that, and so they look for signs that she's not interested anymore. But other things, some men just get fixated in particular on women's bodies and need the woman's body to look a particular way. And they'll talk about it as if it's some preference, like, oh, I just like this body type and that's just how I am. But if I explore it on a deeper level with them, I often find that they're objectifying her for a particular reason. There's some underlying either anger towards women, or often it's a disappointment with women that have led them to, instead of connect to her emotionally, just relate to her on this very superficial physical term, like it feels safer for him to do that. And so when I'm working with men about that, I work with them on becoming more, understanding what that emotion is, and that not allowing that emotion to block their sexual experience. Because if a man restricts his ability to get turned on to a woman to a very particular body type, then he's narrowing his sexual experience. He's harming his own sexuality, is the way I kind of frame it to him. And to be released from that and to be able to find the beauty in any woman of any size.
Wow, that's really important information for women to know, because I've been on that side of someone objectifying me, and the last example you gave, and as women we will take that very personal, and in this case it was because it was a dysfunctional aspect of his own life, and like you just explained. But the other side of it is really important to know, because there are obviously going to be other women out there who are dealing with what you explained as the body image of her pertaining to maybe she doesn't love him that much anymore. Maybe she's not that attracted, so she's not trying to really take care of herself anymore. And they're not seeing the side of, maybe she's a mom, she's tired, she's, going through, her body changes and the hormones changes after children and things like that, where it may lend itself to someone gaining weight. So it's important, I think, for your book to be out there so we both understand on both sides, men and women, what the different issues are, and that way we can discern in our own lives if we are dealing with that, whether it's coming from a place of the man's, self-esteem and thinking his partner isn't loving him, or if it's actually a dysfunctional aspect where there's something missing in their life and they're now projecting this issue on to their wife or partner. So that's why I think your book is so important to be out there and have that kind of information, so we really start to understand, kind of like when Mars Venus came out, we had to speak a language. I'm wondering also, how did the information that was being revealed to you by these men affect you in your own personal relationships or friendships with men? And did you find this help or hinder you on some aspects?
I think the reason why I chose to tell my personal story along with the stories of men is because I wanted particularly the female readers to witness my transformation, because I thought that there would be a lot for people to learn. Because my initial response to having lots of men come in for psychotherapy and tell me a lot of stories. All day long I'm listening to stories of infidelity and prostitutes and sex workers and all kinds of things. And I think it challenged me, because I initially was had very sort of romantic ideas, and maybe even a little delusional about men. I wanted to see everything positive, and so it was hard for me to listen to some of their truths. And so it sort of popped my bubble of fantasy a little bit. And so I had some negative reactions, just internally. But as a psychologist, when my job is to help them, I had to explore it, and I had to try and understand it. And by digging and asking a lot of questions and really sitting with these men, I was able to tap into the underlying vulnerabilities and fears and deep wishes that they have about women. And once I was able to connect to that, it grew inside of me a compassion that I felt in a very real way. And it was really teaching me lessons about what love is. And so I really wanted to share that, because it did impact my own relationship. I went through a period where I felt insecure, I felt jealous, I felt unstable. I was losing my faith in men, losing my faith in love and monogamy. And that did impact my relationship.
Overall, you found it really actually had a helpful outcome for your relationships, even though it may have sort of felt like it was hindering you in the beginning because there were a bit of shocks about what's really going on. But getting to the deeper parts of it, it sounds like you're saying, as a human being and as a spirit having a human journey, you got to that place where you could start to have compassion for, even when it was strictly a straight up dysfunction, you're starting to see and have compassion and possibly have some insights as to, how we can possibly help heal ourselves as men and women and heal these issues that, when we come from broken families or have these kinds of issues going on behind closed doors. I was wondering then, for you, what was the biggest epiphany that you had with regards to how men truly think and feel about sex and or relationships?
One of the sort of general epiphanies that I had, that when you look below all of the dysfunction and all of the sort of ego stuff that men are seeking out through sexuality, is that what I was hearing from them was like a yearning in their spirit for more meaningful sex, for it to be special, in a way for it even to be sacred, without them sort of being able to really articulate that. But it was really becoming more about love, and it surprised me, because that wasn't me trying to project my ideals onto them. This is what they're actually bringing to me. And I thought about as I sat with them, how they tell me their stories of growing up, how they're really socialized to separate sex and love. And then they come to me in their 20s and 30s later in life, and they're not comfortable with this separation that they have inside of them. They've been taught. And in some way, I feel like the work is connecting them back to the true essence of who they are, which is loving beings. If you look, and you can look at any child, like any sort of small boy, and see that the essence of a male is very loving. And it's socialized out of them through their adolescence and early 20s. And then it causes dysfunction later in their life when they try and reach out and have a real relationship with a woman. So I love watching that process of them reconnecting to who they are and allowing love sort of back into their heart.
Wow, that is really beautiful. That's a great thing, and that's helpful and healing. When it's healing for men, it's also healing for women, because at some point, most of these men are obviously going to enter into another relationship, but this time they can come with a different perspective and a better understanding, a deeper understanding of who they are. Was there anything that you found out that was really shocking to you that you didn't previously know or were hoping that you would never have confirmed by some of these men?
I think that there was a lot that was sort of shocking, but I think some of it was who, I think the hardest stuff to listen to was the sort of stories of infidelity, because it just makes you worry about your own relationship. And I would think, who does this and why? And I even wrote a part for the book called The Cheater Taxonomy, trying to figure out if there's a profile of, like, who does that, which I did not put in the book because that's not the message that I'm trying to put out into the world. It's more labels about men. But that was coming from a place of fear. And so, I was seeing things like, the sort of nice, loyal guy who loves his wife, who, wants to please her and keep her happy, being the guy who is the one who goes to these, various sex services. So I think that I found that surprising. It sort of made me feel unsettled, that it's not just the sort of classic, Don Juan sort of womanizer type that, even the guys that you would think are the nice, loyal guys are also doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And it's great that you've taken such a, honest part of responsibility and how you want to relay this information. And, you're not trying to get out a negative message, but a message that's really helping to heal and bridge some of the gaps for us. Because it is always a concern with women behind closed doors. What are men really thinking? Why are they cheating? I mean, I have friends myself who've had husbands who've cheated on them and the marriages have broken up. And although it wasn't an issue I ever personally dealt with, it's something in the back of your mind. You think, well, did someone cheat and I just didn't know about it,
Right.
And so by having this kind of really true, down to the core information available, it really helps us to, in our own private world, look at it and evaluate it and possibly bring it up for discussion in our own relationship. I'm just wondering, what are some of your final thoughts on some of the pluses and the minuses that men have towards women, and how do you feel the information in your book can really help women?
I think that it can. I actually think that if women read the book, they are sort of, it'll help them to let go of certain myths and stories that women tell each other about men that don't serve us, that in fact work against us in terms of attracting a healthy mate for ourselves. Because when we're walking around sort of harboring sentiment about men that is negative, men cheat, or men will be men, or they do this or they do that, and sort of that negativity, it doesn't serve anybody. And so I want women to look at it and see the real sort of drive that men have underlying a lot of their behavior, good or bad. And I think that women will see themselves in their stories. I think that they'll see how men aren't that different from us, and they have some of the same desires for love and acceptance and to please, and they lose themselves in relationships too, and then try to find themselves again, and the conflicted relationship they have with their own masculinity. I think that there's a lot in there that it'll teach women to it'll help women to connect with men instead of just labeling men, but to go, okay, well, let me understand this, let me talk to him. And I think communication is something, it's a trite expression in psychotherapy, we'll communicate, but the more you move towards something instead of, attacking it, the greater connection that you end up having.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's excellent. It sounds like, on some levels we're really kind of the same. We just have different approaches and different viewpoints, but, at the core we're really kind of the same. We're both wanting the same thing, to really figure out how to connect with each other.
Absolutely. The more I'm convinced, the more time I spend with men, the more I'm convinced that the gender differences are not as pronounced as, as many have believed in the past. I see that men value commitment, they value monogamy, they value fidelity, they want sex to be special and meaningful, and they're very emotional about sex. Even when they think they're not, even when they're trying to separate sex and love, they're very emotional about it.
Wow, that is so wonderful to know. Dr. Engler?
It's a heartening book. It's a hopeful and a heartening book. It's not a book about, let me tell you all the perverted stories about men and how terrible they are. A lot of people are reaching out telling me that this book is giving them hope again.
Oh, excellent. Well, Dr. Engler, thank you so much for your honesty and for sharing your personal and clinical stories of the truth about what some men think and feel about sex and love. And please tell me how we can get a copy of this amazingly insightful book and how we can all be a part of your wonderful and informative world.
It's in bookstores nationwide, and people can also go online to buy it at Amazon. You can get it on Kindle or ebooks if you like. And people can visit my website at themenonmycouch.com, or my personal website at brandyengler.vpweb.com.
Okay, well, thank you again, Dr. Engler. I do appreciate your time today to come on our show, and I hope we can chat again soon. This will be featured on rainevance.com, where we share love and wisdom to liberate your soul. And also, this will be featured on Facebook at Raine Vance, and hopefully you will connect with me on Twitter, as I will tweet this on Twitter as well at Raine Vance. And Dr. Engler, thanks again, and please continue to keep sharing your wisdom.